So today we have got with us Mr. Sandeep Goyal, who is the managing director of a very well-known brand, Modulex. Modulex, as we all know, is India's leading online store for industrial tools and equipment, focused on industrial supplies, including MRO, safety, electricals, lighting, cleaning and housekeeping, office stationery supplies, and many other industrial essentials. So a very warm welcome, Mr. Sandeep, to this fireside chat.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Okay, so let's start with the first question, which is related to the overall B2B e-commerce marketplace. We are seeing that startups in the B2B e-commerce marketplace that cater to industrial needs have been riding very high. Okay, so there is a high demand for these kind of startups. So what are the reasons that you see behind this aggressive growth in the B2B e-commerce marketplace?
Sure. Yeah. So, if you look at the whole evolution and journey of the B2B, I would say it started off when the B2C transformation in India started. You started seeing in mid 2000, we started seeing B2C companies coming in where, we started to go to online portals. We started ordering using apps, etc.
Yeah.
That started triggering a user behavior, right? So users started to realize that I can order in this manner, I can track my order online, and that sort of brought more awareness. And these are the same set of people who work in corporates, they work as procurement managers and all. And, somewhere the thought got seeded that if B2C can get transformed and buying can happen in this manner, why not B2B, right? So that started getting built up from B2C transformation, where the user awareness, internet becoming stronger, mobile devices becoming available, the whole transformation. But I think then a few more things happened which were more specific to B2B, like GST reform was one of the very, very big things which drove adoption of B2B e-commerce platforms. Because, a few things we must understand about B2B businesses, it's a very large space. It's extremely fragmented. Just to give you an example, if you take any mid-size automobile plant, they will be buying their industrial supplies from 400 to 500 different suppliers. So that's the level of fragmentation you have, which results in a lot of, operational inefficiencies, dealing with a lot of suppliers. With GST, when the compliance became a concern, right? So that started bringing the need for making this change. And that's where if you see a lot of B2B commerce companies who are starting on just pre-GST part or during GST part, that's when it got accelerated. And I think the third event, which was fairly big in accelerating this journey, was COVID, where everyone realized that disruption can come in any shape and form, and they will have to have a much larger base in order to continue the supplies and material coming into their plants and factories, etc. So it got built up over a period of time. Of course, it's a very big market. The customer base you have is B2B, where there is a lot of repeat behavior. Unit economics are much better as compared to B2C. So there are certain things about B2B business which make it a pretty attractive proposition, and that's how we are seeing a lot of players entering the market.
Very good. So means very well said. But if you look at the market scenario, the overall startup ecosystem. So majority of the startups are currently going through a kind of funding winter. Okay, and funding means very scarce. Okay, so according to you, what are the major factors that are contributing to the kind of funding winter in India's startup ecosystem?
So again, I think this was also a chain reaction or a build-up which happened over a period of time. COVID, we all know, was an event which sort of disrupted everything early March, April month when it began. Everything started to look very grim. But then we realized over a period of time that COVID actually helped the commerce business, both B2B, B2C side, because the users started realizing that online will be a credible channel, larger aggregators will play a big role. Yeah. But then, we saw the continuation of events once COVID got over and everyone thought we are now going to live in a normal world, and then maybe it's back to old normal. Suddenly you had the war in Ukraine triggering, which was again a very, very large impact macroeconomic event. Which disrupted the supply chain pretty significantly, right? That triggered the whole Fed rate recession part, which again became a sort of flywheel. And then we saw a series of rates revision, recession started settling down in the West, Europe, US, and the overall sentiment became quite grim over a period of time. And I think a lot of these things are sentiment driven. What sort of, whether you are in a bearish market or bullish market. Other thing which was, I think, happening, and winter is again a cyclic. I think they come every few years. So it's not like something is happening for the first time. Again, we were starting to see that the behavior of the public market and private market was very, very different. How public markets were valuing company, how the movement was very different than how 21, 22, how the private markets were moving. So again, I think there was anyway a correction coming up over there. So I think the combination of these macro plus specifically what was happening in the industry led to so-called funding winter that we are in right now.
Okay, very good. So, see, what is happening that we have also seen valuations of many of the startups, even many of the unicorns, has been the case where valuations have dropped drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you think that these valuations, these drops in valuations, how have these impacted startups' overall confidence and growth plans?
So, there are a couple of things. One is why the valuations are dropping. I think that's an important thing for us to understand. And then how is it impacting companies? See, there are two types of startups you will see. One startup will be a very high money burning startup. They burn a lot of money every month.
Yeah.
And hence they have a regular funding requirement. Every 6 months, they'll have a runway of 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. And if they don't raise capital, they will not be able to run their operations. The design is done in a manner that is high burn. On the other side, there are few startups who run in a manner that they have money in the bank. Their burn is quite small. They can practically, we call something as the runway. We can call it an infinite runway. They can run for a decade or several years without raising capital to run the day-to-day operations. But they do fundraise, they keep money for growth, for scalability, for acquisition, for going into new countries.
Yeah.
These are the two schools of thoughts. Now, the bucket A, the first bucket, if you see, if there is a company which is running with a 6 to 9 months runway, and suddenly funding winter arrives where the funding starts to become, rare, and they require money to continue running their business, then they have to go out and raise capital. The market is dull. So, of course, they will have to, in the negotiation, they will have to start going down on the valuation. The second bucket companies, they will not go out for fundraise until the winter goes away and the market becomes better, because there is no necessity to run day-to-day operations. As long as growth scale is concerned, they can moderate it a little bit, saying that, okay, given the market condition, we'll grow at a moderate pace, but we'll go for a better unit economics, ops efficiency, etc. So the funding reduction, valuation reduction you're seeing are primarily for two reasons. Either they are to do with the governance. Something very, very significant has been found on the governance side of things, because of which the valuation being revised downward. Or the company is burning at a fast pace and they go out and raise capital. So, of course, the high burn business is not going to be valued well in the current winter.
That's it.
Second is coming to the morale. Of course, if the valuation gets downward revised, it's not a good news, but I would say it should not impact too much, because startups should drive their motivation from the problem that they're solving. And I think on the problem front, the same problem exists. Market is equally big. In fact, India is doing fairly well as an economy. So there is no reason why you should feel demotivated or lose faith in the market availability. Market is same as what it was earlier. In India, even better. And I always explain it with an example. It's a cricket example. So, for example, Shoaib Akhtar was one of the most well-known fast bowler we knew. He used to bowl at a very, very high pace, 100 miles, 160 kilometers an hour. Now, but the accuracy was poor. Line and length was not good. Right. So then people said that you revise your speed downwards. Right. Instead of 160, you bowl at 140, 145, but focus on line and length and accuracy, etc.
Yeah.
Now, other thing was he was getting injured because of bowling too fast.
Yeah.
Right. should he get demotivated saying that my speed has been downward revised? There is a downward evaluation of my speed. Or should he feel excited? Now I've got the right mix of speed and line and length, and I'm likely to hit more wickets and perform better. It's exactly the same thing in the startup world as well. I think valuation were there where they were, but if they were coming at the cost of burn or profitability or free cash flow, that was not a performance which was helping. So I think this downward revision should be taken in a manner as a lesson to course correct, and then start playing again to reach that end goal level. So that's how we look at it.
Very well said. Very well said. That means I believe that I also believe that there has to be some course correction. Okay.
Correct.
So what we are also seeing that means very very connected thing is that due to all these market conditions. Okay. So investors' confidence is not at its best. Okay. So how exactly, what are the unique strategies that you are taking or you would suggest to retain investor confidence and showcase your startup's potential during the funding downturn?
Yeah. So the first part, in terms of what have we implemented or what we have done. See, from the beginning, actually, if you look at, we have been a very frugal company. Moglix has always been a very low burn, very capital efficient, very focused on creating a high value organization. Most of the leadership members come from organizations where we have seen high profitability firms being run with certain discipline. So our belief was always be frugal, never participate in any kind of market randomness. And when I say market randomness, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is, it comes from an employee's perspective, like 2021, just when the COVID was starting to ease out around the wave 2 part and all, job market suddenly shot up. And I know of examples where people changed like 3 jobs within a matter of 3-4 months, and their salary became 3 times of what they were earning beforehand, right? One option you have as an employer is that you participate in that randomness, and then you have a candidate applying for a job saying, I have switched 2 jobs in last 2 months, but I join you as a 3rd job if you give me another 30% hike. We never participated in these randomness.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it basically bloats your cost structure, right? If you were to make some money or you were becoming more ops efficient, it will go for a toss. Second, randomness, which is seen, especially in commerce market, you see there is a KPI called GMV, or the annual run rate that you're doing as a company. Many a times you come across a GMV or ARR, which is of low quality. It is high risk. Either your money might get stuck, working capital may become a problem. Plenty of these are available in India. You can pick up revenue by taking very, very high risk, which becomes a problem. That's also kind of randomness. So we never participated in either employment market randomness or any kind of revenue randomness. High quality revenue, working with employees who are looking for a longer race rather than quick jumps and then making money out of that opportunity was never participated. So I think this simple thing helped us, number one. Second is, again, I'll come to the KPIs, which are very critical in startup world. You have GMV, you have gross margins, you have EBITDA, and you have cash flows, right? So these 4 are very, very important KPIs. Many a times you can see few companies are just after GMV, few are after GM where they focus on gross margin. But you might be making high gross margin, but it may not be translating into EBITDA ultimately, not leading you towards profitability, because in order to deliver that business, you need a lot of manpower, a lot of marketing spend, etc. So you still don't make money.
Yeah.
We have tried to balance these 4 KPIs rather than skewing in favor of a particular one. So always the decisions are taken by looking at GMV, GM, and EBITDA, cash flow side of things. So that also creates a healthy balance, and that's how we have been able to remain a very, very healthy company. I put ourselves in the bucket B, the A and B bucket, which I was talking about when we talked about the burn, etc. So that's what has worked for us. And I think that lead to the second part of your question as well, that what should companies be doing is effectively balance it out. I think participating in any kind of randomness to make short-term gains, it becomes a problem in a longer run.
Very, very good. So very well means very deep thoughts that you have shared. and randomness has to be avoided in any case.
Correct. No, at an industry level itself, I think as a startup ecosystem, that's a sort of, I would say, a kind of corporate social responsibility to ensure we don't make the market totally unstable from that point of view.
So this comes to my another question, very, very related thing. So how important do you think it is for startups to focus on profitability alongside growth? Not only the growth, but profitability. How critical is it for the startups to be focused on profitability, and what steps need to be taken to strike a balance between both?
No, it's very important. I mean, we believe in and we practice it. It's very important. It's like, when you eat, you try to strike a balance between the nutrition and taste. If the food is not tasty, you will not enjoy it. If it is not nutritious, you will not be healthy. So if you have to balance the health and happiness, you have to take care of both. The same applies to business, that it just can't be the growth which you're enjoying, but it's unhealthy. And that's where you have to start balancing. And I think that's where some of these lessons get taught when the winter arrives, because in the summer you don't realize. Right? So that way winter is good. In terms of what should be done, I think fiscal discipline is extremely, extremely important. Fiscal discipline will be very, very important for organization. As I said, do not participate in randomness, not picking up deals which are just, very heavily skewed in favor of one KPI and it violates rest all the KPIs. Similarly, on the employment side, you have to be very, very clear what sort of culture you're building, what sort of team you're hiring, no disparities in the system. That becomes very important. And last is the ops efficiency and rigor. And that's been a big debate, this COVID work from home or hybrid or work from office thing. I think each company will need to focus on what is right for them. See, sometimes what happens is the peer pressure is so high that your employees' friends will be all getting work from home. So your employees also expect that we should be all work from home as well, or hybrid. But nature of your business is such that you can't. I mean, you will never see a hospital employee coming and saying, okay, it's work from home in XYZ consulting firm, so hospital should give work from home.
Yeah.
Now, there is hospital at one extreme. There are probably consulting, IT, software companies at the other end. In between, we have the commerce companies, right? So they will have to follow something which is right for their business, not doing it just because 10 other people are doing and we come under pressure to replicate the same. So some of these practices is what people will have to take to survive the winter. And it's winter. It comes every year. So it's not like the winter will go and then it will never come back again. So you have to, whatever woolens you have, you have to keep them carefully. You should be able to take them out again when the winter comes. So this should be done on ongoing basis, not for this winter alone.
Certainly. And very, very great comparison that we have done. And so now let's talk about Mochlex. Okay. So if you could please talk about your India footprint, your major achievements over the last 2 years in terms of business growth or maybe expansion or revenue growth kind of things. So what are the highlights that you would like to give us?
So again, Moglix, as you highlighted, we are in industrial supplies, whether it is a small workshop, printing press, or it's a large steel plant or a mine. We supply industrial goods to all. Anything that they require to run their plant successfully, be it electrical fitting, safety shoes, hand tools, lubricant oil, housekeeping, office stationery, we supply it all.
Yeah.
We are present pan-India. Today we cover, there are 40 warehouses we have in the country, and practically covers every industrial hub that you have in India, right from Bandi in Himachal, Coimbatore in down south, Guwahati in far east, Silvassa in west, all the industrial hubs we cover. We have the catalog for India. In fact, one of the big problems before 2014-15 was that there was no single catalog of these items. Like you go to Flipkart or Amazon today, you find the catalog of all the books, shoes, clothing, etc.
Yeah.
There was no catalog where you can find all the safety shoe, different kind of tools, drill machines, welding rods, etc. So we have created a catalog of close to 1 million products now, 800,000 plus products that we have. And the growth has been pretty significant. Of course, I'll not be able to give out specific numbers, but we have pretty much grown over 100% for last few years, in fact, right from the inception.
Right. So, can you also please talk about your top focus areas, or maybe your expansion plans over the next couple of years, maybe in the time frame of 2 to 4 years to come now?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of, India, we are present, as I said, across the country. So focus is more on adding categories because coverage wise, we are pretty much there covering the entire country. 2 years back, we started Middle East, which was beginning with UAE. We are present in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. As we move forward in I think, a couple of quarters, now we look at Saudi as a potential market, further expanding within the Middle East region. So that's on the geographical coverage side. Apart from that, I think one of the key things that we have planned is looking at potentially an IPO, which is 2 to 4 years horizon. We are looking at somewhere post 2025. That will be the plan to go public. So these are couple of key events that we are planning. Otherwise, we are the largest in our segment in the country. We serve close to 3,000 plants. So that footprint wise, we are very well placed already.
Very good. Very good. So, my last question for this fireside chat would be, how do you envision the future of India's tech startup ecosystem beyond this funding winter, which you said that it would keep on coming over a period of time? Okay.
Yeah.
That means, how do you see the future of India's tech startup ecosystem overall, and what are the trends that you foresee in the coming years?
Yeah, so I think startup ecosystem will continue to grow. India is in, people say that it's not the decade, it's the century which belongs to India. So, and we see that from the overall macro environment perspective, India is in a zone of its own, and I think that run will continue, and that basically goes as a downstream impact on the startup ecosystem as well. So it's a very, very promising journey that we are up for. Events like what we are seeing right now, I think, as I said, these are always should be taken positively. I always believe in a saying which says that a steady sea never makes a skilled sailor, right? So there have to be waves in the sea, and that's when you will become the sailor who has the right skills. So I think this will mature the ecosystem as a whole. KPIs wise, we talked about, we will start to see much more focus from investors, not just on your annual run rate part, but also on the gross margin, free cash flow. I'm sure certain new KPIs will come. I mean, if you look at the 101 book of investors or funding, there will be 10 or 15 KPIs, right from CAC, total addressable market, GMV, GM, etc. Few more will get added. People will start to look at things like how much money did you burn to become free cash flow, for example, right? And that will start to play a role. So some of these health-related metrics will become super critical for the startup industry, so that they start to focus on it right from the beginning. And the journey will continue. But otherwise, extremely bright future for Indian startups. I think journey has just begun. I would love to see some global startups getting created out of India, which basically originate in India and then go worldwide, just like how, Amazon and Uber, we know that they were born in the US and then they became several multi-country organizations. India will soon start to get such brand names. I would say in next decade, we should see a few.
Yeah, sure. I also believe that India would produce many of the largest startups that would become future MNCs. Okay. So thanks a lot. It's really been a very good conversation. We have provided some very in-depth thoughts and insights, and which I'm sure that our audience would love to hear. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for having me, and you have a good day.
Yeah, sure.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.